How's it going? So we're gonna be making this thing here. Not from scratch, but from... I'm just basically gonna be showing you how to use an instance of a model inside Mobx to create this, right? So right now what we have is... like, this is... we already done in the previous video, basically, right? Where we are just clicking and it adds something into the map. But now I want to show you how to edit these things. You see, so when you edit, this value here changes. And then we can do also click on. You see, now it's true. You see? Alright, so we need to remove all of that, probably. Yeah. And then I need to remove all of that, like this. So far we have this, right click, it adds. Now we want to be able to edit, right? So, now remember in the previous video I said, when you are creating the map, you need to use the instance of the Mobx type model, basically, right? Now, you should not use just an object. You should not basically do this where you just push an object into it. Why? Because then you cannot use methods associated with this instance. Now, if you know how classes works, this is like no-brainer, because underneath the hood, Mobx is just classes, basically, and that's about it, right? So we need to create methods, right? So actions, in classes they're called methods. They're also called functions sometimes, right? So now we are adding action to an instance, remember, right? It's a little bit different to adding it to the store. So now we want to create a function, let's say toggle. Toggle is done. So it's going to be self is done is going to be equal to reverse self is done, like this. So the second function we want is to edit the name. So let's say edit name function, right? We're gonna pass it a string, which is gonna come from target value, and then self name. Now, where is self coming from? Self is like references the object that is the state. So this self is equal to this entire object. So you can imagine that self.id gives us the ID. Self.name gives us the name. Self is done gives us the self is done, right? So self.name is equal to the string. Alright? Okay. Now here's the benefit of Mobx, right? Well, pause that. We need to now get the values out. And we know that map is an object, we cannot iterate through it. Not only is it an object, it's also an observable. So this part here is actually a observable object, I suppose. Well, observable map, right? So the way to get the values out is values, my store to-do list, okay? Just like we did it in here, do you remember? In the first video. Now we can map it. Map, so we're gonna have element. And let's just return div. We need to put a key in here. So now the cool thing about it is that every element is an instance of this single do item, and we have access to methods inside of this instance. So let's say we want to change the name. We do not have to do it through the store where we pass the ID, then we take the to-do list, map it, return the element, and if element ID matches the ID, we change something. We do not have to do it because every element is an instance of this single to-do item, and we have methods inside that can change the name or ID or is done of that specific instance. Does that make sense? I know it's hard to understand, but you just have to think about it as every element is just like many versions of this, right? So if we want to change any of those values, all we have to do is just call the function, and it will change the value. It automatically recognizes which instance are you going to change. I know it's a little bit confusing, I'm sorry about this, but I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Okay, so the first thing we want to do, let's create a checkbox. Okay? So let's create a checkbox. Input, actually not like this, input, type checkbox, name we don't need, value is going to be element.name, because remember this is element, right? And this element is this object here. We actually have it. We actually have it in here, you see? There they are. Oh Lord, I know it's so hard, but what can you do? It's very confusing, but whatever. And then on click, oh, it's not value, it's checked. Checked, because it's a checkbox, right? So element is going to be is done, because we need boolean. So is done by default is going to be false, right? And now we're going to have a like this. Now we need to reference the method. So the way the reference is element toggle is done. Toggle is done. And then that's it. Oh, it's complaining that there is no key property. But I thought I did put the key property, no? Element dot ID. We just put ID. Okay. No, they want on change, not on click. Okay. So now look, you see we have two. You see it automatically recognizes which instance you are changing. So you don't need to put pass ID or do anything fancy. It just automatically figures it out for you. So this is the third instance, right? We click on, and then there you go. Changed. So the final thing we do is we just add the name field, right? Input type. This is going to be text. Value is going to be element.name. On change. E. So this is event. Element dot edit name. So we need edit name, and we'll pass, which is E, target value, and then we'll close it like this. Alright, so now we can edit the name as well. So you see we have new task 1, A, B, C, and there it is changing. Now I know it's not really a React way of doing things, but I mean it works, right? So what this, just remember that every element in here is an instance of this single to-do item. And we can call functions to change its states inside. And that's about it. Right. And then, of course, the to-do list in here, which is our root store, holds like an array or map of all of those single instances. This is why we're mapping through it. Right. Now, in Mobx, of course, doesn't use arrays. It uses maps. And that's it. And that's how you do it. Take care. Yeah, so in the next video I'm gonna show you why it's not a good idea to replace this with an array. There is a big bug you're gonna run into, and that is because naturally what you want to do, well, I'll show you in the next video. I'll show you in the next video the problem. Take care.